Mom stole $36,000 from my emergency fund to pay off my brother's mortgage. His house is saved, she said, but her smile faded just 5 minutes later. My name is Matt, I'm 38 years old, and for the majority of my adult life, I've been the person my family contacts when something needs to be fixed. Not damaged pipes or electrical problems. Money is always money. It began modestly when I was 24. Karen's auto payment amounts to a few $100s here and there. Then it increased. My brother Ethan's rent while he was between jobs, which lasted 7 months. When Dad's insurance ran out, he was left with unpaid medical expenses. I was notified about family holidays after I booked them, with the idea that I would contribute my fair part. I've never said no. That's the thing with dependability. People cease asking questions and instead make assumptions. Ethan is 2 years younger than me. And if there is one consistency in our family, it is that he has always been the golden child, the athlete in high school, the pleasant one at family gatherings, the one who could do no wrong, even while he did everything wrong. He worked 5 different jobs in 10 years, purchased a truck he couldn't afford, married a woman who shared his fondness for luxury items. Karen and John softened each fall. I was the one holding the pillow. When Ethan purchased his home 4 years ago, I realized it was a stretch. His credit was shaky, and he barely had enough money for a down payment. But Karen was delighted. She contacted me that night, her voice full of pride, telling me how Ethan was finally settling down, creating equity, and becoming a true grown-up. I congratulated him. I sent a housewarming present. I didn't disclose that I'd been renting the same little flat for 5 years, since I was too preoccupied with keeping everyone else afloat. What I didn't tell anybody was that I had started a separate savings account 2 years prior, a real emergency fund that no one in my family was aware of. I had learned the hard way that if they knew money existed, they would find an excuse to spend it on someone else's emergency. 18% of each paycheck was deposited into the account. There is no debit card or check connected, only a gradual, steady accrual of security. $40,000 is mine. That number mattered. It symbolized every time I ate ramen to cover someone else's bill. Every vacation was canceled because my family required me to keep hydrated. I used to smile whenever Ethan bought another fancy device while I wore the same jacket for 4 winters. But Karen was unaware that I had taken extra safeguards. After John attempted to access an old joint account that we had neglected to shut, I became nervous. I'd implemented multi-factor authentication, biometric security, transfer limitations, and fraud alarms set to activate on transactions over $550. The account was securely protected, which provided me peace of mind. Or so I thought. Last Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I had just returned home from work, dressed in business casual, tie loosened, and ready for a relaxing evening. Then I noticed Karen's automobile in the guest parking area. She never just stopped by. We had Sunday meals, scheduled visits, and not random getaways. The second surprise was her grin as I opened the door. Not her normal welcome. This was different. Triumphant and almost euphoric. She had a folder in her hands. Manila is inexpensive, with slightly bowed edges. I have something to show you, she said, going past me without asking. You're going to be so proud of me. I carefully closed the door, a peculiar weight falling on my chest. She sat on my couch and patted the cushion like if I were 10 years old. I remained standing. This is when she opened the folder. The folder held bank statements. Mine. For a time, my mind couldn't absorb it. Those were my account numbers, balances, and emergency fund, written out as proof. How did you get these? I asked. Karen waved her hand. That does not matter, sweetheart. What matters is that I discovered a solution to Ethan's difficulty. My stomach sank. What's the solution? She brought out another sheet of paper. A payment confirmation from yesterday. I transferred $36,000 from my savings to a mortgage firm, Ethan's mortgage firm. The room slanted. My legs made the decision for me to sit down. You took my money. I used family money to help family, Karen clarified, as if I were overly emotional. Ethan was 2 months behind on his mortgage. 2 months. They were commencing the foreclosure process. He could have lost everything. I gazed at the document, my account number, and the amount, which suddenly showed $5,000 rather than $40,000. This was my emergency fund. And that was an emergency. Your brother needs actual assistance, not a budgeting lesson or a modest loan. He wanted someone to step up and preserve his house. So I did. Yes, you are using your money, but you have the option to rebuild the account. You're an excellent saver. Ethan needed it right now. 20 replies struggled for my throat. What came out was, "You stole from me. Do not be silly. You cannot take from your family. Besides, Ethan will pay you back." I nearly laughed. When? When he gets back on his feet. Once he obtains this next promotion, he'll have enough money to repay you with interest. Probably. Probably. Matthew, I don't see why you're so tough. Your sibling was in distress. We are family. Family helps each other. I thought you'd be glad that your funds might be used for something worthwhile rather than sitting in an account accumulating dust. It was gathering security. It was accumulating peace of mind. Now it's time to gather thanks from your brother. He's quite relieved. You should have seen his expression when I informed him that the mortgage was current. He nearly cried. He kept saying how lucky he was to have a brother like you. I eventually looked up at her. Really looked. She smiled, clearly happy with herself. She had stolen $36,000 from me without consent or discussion, and she was sitting on my couch, waiting for praise. How? How did you gain access to my account? It has security protocols. Karen seemed uneasy for the first time. Well, I might have saved some of your old documents from when you lived at home. Social security card, birth certificate, and similar documents. And I recall you suggesting that you used our former street address as a security response. It wasn't really tough. Just a few phone calls and some forms. She had committed identity theft, fraud, and many offenses. And she explained it as if she had done me a favor. You had no right. I had every right. I am your mommy. I raised you. I fed, clothed, and provided for your education. If anybody has the right to decide what's best for this family, it's me. Something chilly sank into my chest. Clarity. You'll thank me later, Karen murmured as she stood and smoothed her clothes. When you have had time to think rationally, you will understand. I did this for the family. I smiled as I looked at her and the packet she had left on my coffee table like a gift receipt. Not a genuine grin. Something else. If you think so, I said gently. She watched my expression, attempting to determine if it was agreement or something else. She then shrugged, kissed my forehead as if I were a child, and departed. The door clicked closed. I sat there for 30 seconds. Then I took up the phone. Except for the sound of my refrigerator and computer clicking, the flat was silent. I sat at my kitchen table, a folder open next to me, and started chronicling everything. Screenshots of my account history, images of the payment confirmation, voice recordings capturing exactly what Karen said, timestamps and details, everything a lawyer would want. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a purposeful theft with careful preparation and execution. She had gotten my personal documents. She had impersonated me. She had evaded security measures intended to prevent this. However, phoning the bank immediately seemed improper, since it was too reactive. If I reported this as fraud right now, Karen would get a lawyer. Ethan would circle the wagons. John would mediate, which entailed urging me to drop it. I have seen this pattern previously. Problems were absorbed. Consequences were dispersed. And those who make difficulties have learnt nothing. Not this time. I spent an hour investigating bank fraud and identity theft protocols. The information was obvious. If I reported it right away, the bank would freeze everything, reverse the transaction, and perhaps file a report with police authorities. Ethan's mortgage payment would bounce. He'd be back where he started, only worse, because bounced payments result in penalties and late fees. Karen would know exactly what I had done. There was poetry in that immediate result. But it felt overly simplistic. They simply feel abused by bureaucracy. They would blame the system, not themselves. 3 years ago, following the episode with John and that old joint account, I decided to do something unique. A fraud prevention strategy that goes beyond ordinary security. Any suspected action initiated an automated evaluation period. Transfers might be reported and kept for 75 hours before being fully processed. I was paranoid back then, but it had provided a safety net. I opened my bank's app and went to security settings. The fraud review mechanism was still ongoing, and, according to Karen's payment confirmation date, the transfer occurred yesterday afternoon, thus it was still inside the review window. I phoned the bank's fraud prevention service. When the individual responded, I politely stated that I needed to report unlawful access. The representative's tone changed. Professional and efficient. Then she asked what I wanted them to do. I want the transfer reversed and my account frozen. No one may access it except me in person with picture identification. We can definitely accomplish that, Mr. Torres. Given the conditions, We will need to submit a formal fraud report. Since the sum exceeds our threshold, legal enforcement will most likely be notified. I hesitated. This was the nuclear option. Can we put off the law enforcement element for 24 hours? I'd want to tackle this internally first. The representative paused. I realize the sensitivity, but I want to be clear. If we reverse the transfer, we will notify the recipient institution. There will be fines and costs imposed. This will have immediate consequences. I understand. Reverse it. I'll handle this right now. The reversal will occur within an hour. I hung up and glanced at the phone. Within an hour, $36,000 would return in my account, and Ethan's mortgage firm would get notice that the payment had been denied due to fraud. Karen's phone would ring, Ethan would worry, and we'd both understand I hadn't just accepted what occurred. I looked at the clock. 5:43. I wondered how long it would take. I cooked dinner, warmed the leftover spaghetti, and ate it at my table while working on my laptop. It was just another Tuesday, except that my phone was sitting near my plate. I turned the volume up and checked it every few minutes. 6:15. Nothing yet. 6:32. Still quiet. At 6:57, it buzzed. A text message from Karen. Call me when you get a chance. There was no sense of haste or terror, simply a nonchalant attitude that suggested she had no clue what was coming. I did not react. At 7:04, my phone lighted up with her name. I let it ring 4 times before responding. Thank God, Matt. I've been trying to understand something. Her voice sounded puzzled. I'm not worried yet, just perplexed. What is going on? It is the oddest thing. The mortgage company contacted about an hour ago to say there was an issue with the payment I made for Ethan. Something about it being reversible. I do not comprehend. I have a confirmation right here. I had a sip of coffee. That's strange. They claim the payment was recognized as unlawful and reversed, but this does not make sense. I have all of the documents. I followed the proper procedures. What techniques exactly? Karen halted briefly. I utilized your account details to complete the transaction. You are aware that we discussed this earlier. Karen, we did not discuss anything. You informed me what you had already accomplished. Well, absolutely. But the point is that the payment was made correctly, so I'm not sure why it would be reversed. Do you believe this is a bank error? I placed down my coffee. It's not an error. This time the pause is longer. What do you mean? I phoned the bank this afternoon to report the transaction as fraudulent, which it was. So they reversed it. The stillness was so long that I considered checking to see whether the call had been dropped. When Karen spoke again, her tone had entirely shifted. What did you do? I reported fraud. You entered my account without permission, using stolen personal information, and moved funds without consent. That is textbook deception. The bank agreed. Matthew, this is ridiculous. I am your mommy. We are family. You cannot report your own relatives for fraud based on a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding. You knew precisely what you were doing. You planned it. You have acquired my paperwork. You impersonated me. These are crimes, Karen. Several offenses. I was assisting your brother with my money without my consent. I heard activity on her end, including footsteps and a door closing. When she spoke again, her tone was lower and tighter. Do you have any clue what you just did? Ethan's payment failed to clear. The mortgage firm is imposing fines. He's going to lose his home because of you. He is likely to lose his home since he has not paid his mortgage for 2 months. And you committed fraud believing there would be no penalties. This is ridiculous. You are willing to destroy your brother's life for money. I am prepared to defend myself against stealing, even if the culprit is my mother. After everything we've done for you, and everything this family has given you. Something within me cracked. Not into fury, but into ice-cold clarity. What has this family given you, Karen? Was it really handed to me? Because, from where I sit, I have given you thousands of money throughout the years. I've bailed out Ethan more times than I can remember. I've paid John's medical costs. I paid family trips to which I was not even invited. And what did I get? My mother believes my bank account is common property, yet my brother struggles to pay his own mortgage. That is not fair. Fair? Is it fair that Ethan received a new car for graduation while I got a card? Is it fair that you paid for his wedding but advised me to keep mine small? Was it fair that you seized my emergency fund of $36,000, which I had saved for years, and handed it to him without asking? Karen's voice crackled. I thought you'd understand. I understand completely. You picked Ethan over me again, like you usually do. The difference this time is that there will be repercussions. Matthew, please. This is something we can address. Let me discuss with the bank. No, the account is locked. Only I have access to it now. You are unable to touch it. Ethan is unable to touch it. Nobody can. I heard another sound over the phone. A automobile door. Voices. Karen took a sudden intake of air. Ethan just pulled up. He received a call from the mortgage company. He's entering. Matthew, you need to fix this right away. I am not mending anything. You broke it. You deal with it. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. After years of swallowed words, they are finally voiced. My phone rang again, 3 minutes later. Ethan's number. I let it go to voicemail. He phoned right back. Then again and again. The fourth time I responded. What the heck have you done? Ethan's voice was pure hatred. I reported the scam to my bank. You had my mortgage payment reversed. Do you have any clue what this will cost me? The fines alone total approximately $2,500. In addition, they are speeding up my foreclosure process. I now have 28 days instead of 85. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? This is my home, Matthew. My house. And you just tanked it because of what? Are you furious at Karen? I am not furious at Karen. I reported a crime. She took $36,000 from me. That is criminal theft. She was attempting to aid me with money that was not hers. I saved money. I needed money. She had no right to touch the money. Ethan's laughter was harsh. What do you need the money for? You don't have children. You don't own a house. You do not have a wife. You just stay in your condo hoarding money, while the rest of us are out here trying to establish real lives. Each phrase felt like a smack, but underlying was affirmation of how my family perceived me. Not as an individual with wants and goals. As a resource to be used when convenient. You're correct. I do not have those items. Do you want to know why? Because every time I save enough for a down payment, someone in my family experiences an emergency. I've spent 15 years being everyone's backup plan. And the only time I attempt to defend something for myself, you label me selfish because you are selfish. This is family, Matthew. Family helps each other. Help works both ways, Ethan. Or at least it should. When was the last time you assisted me? When was the last time you inquired if I needed anything? Silence. That is what I thought. Karen claimed you nearly burst into tears when she told you the mortgage had been paid. Did you cry because you were grateful or relieved that someone else had solved your problem? This is different. It is not. It is the exact same pattern. You make decisions that you cannot afford. Karen allows you, and I pay for it. Literally. The only difference this time was that I said no. You said no by committing fraud. I reported fraud. Karen entered my account unlawfully. She utilized stolen papers. She impersonated me. These are crimes. The only reason she's not in handcuffs right now is since I urged the bank to postpone the police report. That halted him. What? The bank wants to file quickly. I requested 24 hours to handle things internally. But if Karen attempts anything else, that protection disappears. The cops become involved. She is charged. You're bluffing. Call the bank. Inquire about the fraud report submitted this afternoon. See if I'm bluffing. More silence. I could hear breathing and conversations in the background. So what do you want? Money? An apology? I do not want anything from you. And I'm not repairing anything I didn't break. Then what is the point? Is this just to harm us? The point is about limits. The point is about the repercussions. The key is that my money belongs to me, and no one else can make judgments about it. Fine, keep your money, but you're also keeping the guilt when I lose my house. No, Ethan. It is on you. You are 2 months overdue on your mortgage. How did this happen? Where is your money gone? He didn't respond. The truck, I muttered as the pieces clicked together. You purchased a new vehicle 6 months ago. $52,000 when your old one worked properly. That's where your mortgage money went, wasn't it? My old truck had 145,000 miles and operated well. You wanted a new vehicle. You selected the new truck. When you couldn't afford both payments, you opted for the truck. Now you want me to feel guilty for not rescuing you from your own actions. You don't understand. I understand completely. You chose pride over duty. That is okay. But the repercussions are yours, not mine. Karen is weeping. She's weeping at the kitchen table. Karen is weeping because she was caught. You're really not going to help. I'm really not. Then we are done. You and I. After this, we're over. Something inside of me calmed. Not sad. Relief. Okay. That is all you need to say. What else is there? You've stated your stance clearly. I've made it plain. We don't agree on whether stealing from relatives is appropriate. That appears to be a rather basic distinction. Ethan hung up without saying another thing. I sat there, holding my phone, hoping to feel anything. Guilt, despair, and fury. But all I felt was exhaustion, as if I'd been carrying a weight for years and had finally laid it down. My phone vibrated. A text from John. Your mother is quite unhappy. Call me. I gazed at the message. John never get embroiled in family dramas. He was the one who kept the peace and made everything go well. I understood what phoning him meant. He would want to make a compromise. The answer would need me to give Ethan money again, and I'd be right back where I started. I turned off the phone and went to bed. I phoned in ill for work the next day. Not because I was physically unwell, but because I needed time to reflect. My phone remained off till midday. When I eventually switched it on, it showed 37 missed calls, 23 text messages, and 4 voicemails. I did not check any of them. Instead, I drove to the bank. Christina, the manager, welcomed me with professional concern. Mr. Torres, I heard about yesterday. I'm really sorry. Thank you. I need to make some changes to my accounts. We spent an hour sorting through everything. I canceled the savings account where the theft took place and started a new one with different numbers. I added more security levels. I eliminated any recovery contacts my family may have. I changed every security question to answers only I would know. I hate that you have to do this, Christina replied sadly. But I understand why. Has my mother tried contacting the bank? Christina hesitated. I can't discuss other customers, but I can tell you that any attempts to reverse the fraud reversal would be unsuccessful and would trigger the police report we have on hold. Good. I left the bank feeling lighter. My money was secure. This time, it's actually secure. My phone rang as I drove home. An unknown number. Matthew Torres speaking. This is Brittany Gonzalez of First National Mortgage. I'm calling about Ethan Torres's account. Our records identify you as an approved contact. I am not an authorized contact. You have old information. I'm calling to discuss payment options following yesterday's return payment. I am not discussing anything. The mortgage is Ethan's obligation, not mine. I understand that this is delicate. However, I wanted to investigate if there may be a private deal to avoid foreclosure. So there it was. The mortgage firm is looking for money from anybody related to Ethan. There is no agreement. Ethan needs to handle this himself. Mr. Torres, your brother has 28 days before we proceed with foreclosure, if there is any way you can help him. No. My family stole $36,000 from me to pay for Ethan's mortgage. The bank rejected it as fraud. That's why you've called. Now you're attempting to shame me into freely surrendering money that I had already taken. The answer is no. Do not call this number again. I hung up and blocked the number. That evening John called. Matthew, we need to discuss what? About this situation. About what you're doing to this family. What am I doing? John. Karen took from me. She committed fraud. She made a mistake. It is a mistake to use too much salt in soup. This was computed. She took my documents, impersonated me, and committed a criminal. John sighed. You're not incorrect about the legalities, but your family. Families sort out difficulties. I did not make things worse. I stopped a crime from having no repercussions. Your mom is distraught. She hasn't eaten much in 2 days. Then maybe she shouldn't have stolen $36,000. The money would have simply sat in your account. You were not using it. So there it was. The essential belief. My money wasn't mine. That money was my security. John is my safety net, my future. Just because I am not using it right now does not imply it is accessible for someone else to take. Nobody was taking. Your mother was borrowing on Ethan's behalf without asking, without permission, without any realistic plan for repayment. That is taking. That is stealing. Silence, then quieter. What would you like me to say? That your mother was mistaken. Okay, she was incorrect. But whatever is done is done. The question is, what should we do next? We do nothing. Karen struggles with the repercussions of her decisions. Ethan deals with his, while I defend what is mine. And if Ethan loses his house, he will lose his house. This is not the end of the world. He can rent. He is capable of downsizing. He can make alternative decisions. You sound very cold. I sound finished. I have been the family bank for 15 years. And the only time I draw a line, I become chilly. I am selfish. I am wrecking the family. Do you hear how it sounds? John did not respond quickly. When he did, his voice changed. Older. Karen wants to know if you'll come to Sunday dinner. No, Matthew. I'm not sitting at a table pretending everything is normal when everyone thinks I'm the villain. If you want to eat supper with me, we can do it someplace else. It's just us. But I don't do family meals anymore. Are you really willing to destroy this family for money? I'm prepared to defend myself against folks who believe my limits are negotiable. If something destroys the family, perhaps the family wasn't so strong to begin with. John hung up without a farewell. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, feeling the weight of what had just happened. I had virtually closed myself off from my family. I waited for guilt to strike. It didn't arrive. Instead, I felt space, room to breathe, and relief from the continual worry about what calamity might strike next. I got down at my laptop and completed something I had been putting off for 3 years. I began looking at genuine residences in my price range. The next morning, I phoned a realtor. 3 weeks later, I closed on a tiny townhouse. 2 bedrooms, a new kitchen, and a small garden. That was mine. I didn't notify my family, didn't invite them, and didn't share photos. I recently moved in on a Saturday with the aid of 2 co-workers who had become real friends. The first night in my new house, I felt something I hadn't felt in years while sitting on my couch in my living room. Peace. My phone had been silenced. Karen will no longer make daily calls. No more texts from Ethan. Even John had ceased reaching out. I understood what that meant. I had been cut off. Excommunicated for having limits, and I was fine with it until 4 weeks later, when my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. I peeked through the peephole and saw Karen standing alone on my doorstep. There was no folder this time, only her pocketbook and a worn frown. I nearly didn't open the door, but curiosity triumphed. How did you find me? I contacted your workplace and told them I was your mother with an emergency. They gave me your new address. I made a mental note to report this to HR. What do you want? Can I come inside? No, Karen flinched. Matthew, please. I just want to talk. We talked. You stated why you believed stealing from me was justified. I explained that it wasn't. There's nothing else to say. Ethan lost the house. I did not react. They foreclosed 2 weeks ago. He and Heather are currently staying with us. It's incredibly packed and tight. I'm sorry to hear that, are you? Because you don't sound sorry. Perhaps I was slightly satisfied. Not because Ethan was suffering, but because the repercussions had finally arrived. What do you want me to say, Karen? I told you what would happen. Ethan had alternatives. He could have sold his truck. He might have worked additional hours. He had the option to shrink. He decided not to. That is on him. He's your brother. He's a 33-year-old man trying to sort out his own life. Karen's eyes flooded with tears. This time they're real. When did you get so hard? When you stole $36,000 from me and expected me to thank you for it. I came here to apologize. It astonished me. Okay. I apologize. I apologize for accessing your account without your permission. I am sorry I didn't ask. I'm sorry for justifying it by convincing myself I was helping my family. The words were correct, yet something about the delivery seemed odd. Rehearsed. Why now? Why apologize now, after 4 weeks of silence? Karen glanced away. Because things are so terrible at home. Ethan and Heather are constantly fighting, John is stressed, the home is too tiny, and I hoped that if I apologized, you would be willing to help. There it was. Not a true apology, but a transaction. No, Karen, please. I don't really care what you need. For 15 years I cared. I gave. I made a sacrifice. And the moment I finished, you all shut me off as if I hadn't mattered. Things are difficult right now and you suddenly remember I exist. That is not family, Karen. That's exploiting people. We're not using. You are. You've always been. And I'm done being exploited. I have my own life now. I own a house. My personal plans. Plans that do not involve funding for others' choices. Karen's face stiffened. The melancholy vanished. You've changed. No. I finally stopped pretending that what this family did to me was normal or acceptable or loving. So that's all. You're going to abandon us. I am going to live my life. You are welcome to participate as long as you respect my boundaries. But if you can't, and all you want is access to my money, then we're done. Karen gazed at me for a long time. She then turned and walked back to her car, without saying anything else. I shut the door and stood in my entrance, hands trembling slightly and pulse hammering. I just burnt the last bridge, making it obvious that there would be no turning back to the way things were. It felt both terrible and freeing. 6 months later, I'm writing from my home office, which I converted from the second bedroom. I've been promoted twice after separating from my family. It turns out that when you aren't continuously worried about other people's problems, you do better at work. I haven't heard from Karen or Ethan in 5 months. John sends me quick, neutral texts on occasion, generally to check if I'm still alive. I answer in the same manner. Last week I received an SMS from an unknown number. It was Heather, Ethan's wife. I'm not sure whether you'll see this, but I wanted you to know we're doing well. Ethan acquired a better paying job. We are renting a little flat. It's not the house, but it is ours. Perhaps he needed to lose everything. He is different today. Be more responsible. Anyway, I just thought you should know. I did not answer, but I did preserve the message. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because it reaffirmed my long-held beliefs. Consequences educate. Enabling does not. I'm now dating someone. A woman I met at a coffee shop. She has no idea about my family turmoil except that we aren't close. She doesn't press for specifics. She respects limits. It's refreshing. We're thinking about moving in together next year, maybe acquiring a dog, and creating a life that is ours, not borrowed, stolen, or given away to others who don't value it. Karen brought me a folder that day, and I still have it. I put it in a drawer as a reminder of what I received back, rather than what was stolen. My dignity, my boundaries, my life, and $36,000 that will never pass through anybody else's hands again.